What actually makes someone a hero? It's a question I assume we all think we have the answer to. I mean, I spent years building my own comic book universe, writing heroes from scratch, and the more I dug into what makes these characters actually work, the more I kept coming back to the same 5 things, 5 qualities, 5 pillars, if you will. Every true hero I've ever looked into hits all 5. And shockingly, every great villain hits 4 to an extent. It's always the 5th pillar where the whole thing falls apart. And by the end of this video, I'm going to predict that you're not just going to understand what makes a hero, you're going to want to be one. My name is Braden. I'm a film and animation grad and a lifelong Marvel fan, and I've been closely following the MCU since 2008. This is video 3 of my Doomsday Clock series, so let's get into it. Now, there's a scene in The Winter Soldier that I think about a lot as I'm daydreaming about the glory days of the MCU. Anyways, Steve Rogers steps into an elevator with 10 SHIELD agents, and before anything happens, before a single punch gets thrown, he just looks around, reads the room, and then delivers maybe one of the coldest lines I've ever heard leave this man's mouth.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
That's awareness, and at its core, it comes down to one thing. You cannot help what you don't see. So without it, none of the other pillars can be aimed at anything. And that's important, because courage without awareness is just recklessness. Strength without awareness is just destruction. A well-intentioned person who isn't paying attention can cause just as much damage as someone who means harm. Here's what I think gets missed though. Awareness isn't just about reading a room or spotting a threat like you're Batman or something. It's about seeing the person behind the threat. It's noticing what everyone else decided wasn't their problem. Peter Parker's spider sense gets all the credit, right? But what makes it mean something is that it's paired with emotional awareness. He notices the kid getting picked on. He sees the person who needs help. The radioactive spider actually just amplified something that was already there. Now, Dr. Doom has awareness too. Extraordinary awareness, actually. He reads people, he reads situations, reads variables most people wouldn't even catch. But his awareness only ever points in one direction, inward, back toward himself, toward his mission, his wound. He sees threats and opportunities. He just can't see the humanity in the people around him. A hero's awareness points outward. A villain's points inward. Outward, inward. Remember that. Steve Rogers didn't like bullies. You know the line. He could do it all day. But here's what I love about that. He does not just say it because he thinks he can win. There's just something in him that will not stay down. He gets up, gets knocked down, gets up again. Eventually the guy hitting him just gets tired and walks away, which I admit is not a bad strategy in theory. But that's conviction, and I want to separate it from something that gets confused with all the time, stubbornness. You see, stubbornness is refusing to change because you're scared of being wrong. Conviction is refusing to bend because you already know what you stand for. Every hero has to have this because the world will always give you a reason to stop. There's always a moment where quitting is the rational choice, where the cost of continuing is genuinely higher than any reasonable person should have to pay. Conviction is what keeps them standing anyway. Think about Matt Murdock. Gets beaten within an inch of his life on a weekly basis, loses cases, loses people he cares about, but he puts on the mask knowing exactly what it's going to cost him. His sleep, his body, his relationships, but he keeps going back because something underneath the fear will not give in. Real conviction is rooted in something outside yourself, and I think that's what separates it from ego. It includes the possibility of being wrong, but choosing to stand anyway. A hero's conviction points forward. A villain's conviction curves back, always, eventually, toward themselves. You guys want to know a moment in the MCU I genuinely want to frame and put on my wall? Steve Rogers in Endgame. He's got a broken shield, Thanos' entire army on the other side of the field, Nobody standing next to him. He tightens the strap on his shield and he walks forward, sending it to bullies because he can do this all day. And from the outside, that looks insane. Do you guys see that and think that? Because Peter Parker swinging into a fight that he can't win looks stupid. Steve walking alone toward an army looks like a death wish. But there's something underneath it that isn't stupid or reckless at all. It's the decision that the people in front of you matter more than your own survival. And once you understand what these characters actually value, that becomes the most rational thing in the world. The grenade scene in the first Avenger gets me every time. Seriously, that movie is so criminally underrated. It sets up so much of who Steve is as a character. Before Steve gets the serum, a dummy grenade lands in the middle of a group of soldiers at the training camp, and every single one of them runs. Steve Rogers dives on it, covers it with his skinny little body, and tells the others to get back. And these are guys who are making his life miserable 5 minutes earlier. That's courage. The decision that if someone has to absorb this, it's going to be me. And let me be clear, courage is not the absence of fear. It's just that for these characters, what they're protecting is bigger than what they're afraid of. Now, when I say strength, I'm not talking about the physique or the lifting numbers or the gains, you know what I mean. I'm talking about the kind of strength that absorbs real loss and just keeps moving forward. Steve Rogers lost everything. He lost Bucky. He lost 70 years of his life. He woke up in a world where everyone he'd ever known was either dead or old. He lost the life he was supposed to have with Peggy, and not once did he use any of that as an excuse or a reason to check out. He just kept showing up because he cannot make a selfish decision if his life depended on it. That's who he is. And it's honestly the hardest pillar to hold on to because loss is supposed to change you, right? I mean, I think it kind of is. The question is just what direction it pushes you in. Does it collapse you inward, or does it make you fight harder for the people still standing in front of you? For Steve, it always pushed outward, every single time. When I was a kid, Spider-Man was the character for me. It was the first movie I remember watching. You know, I loved him in a way that I couldn't really explain. I mean, I still kind of can't. Do you guys get that with the character as well? There's a stretch in school where things were rough, getting picked on, feeling like the world was a little bigger and more intense than I knew how to handle. And I kept going back to Peter Parker, Clark Kent in Man of Steel, being told to hide who he was. The loser nobody took seriously. Those weren't characters I just liked. They were characters that I needed. And what they had, the thing that made them feel real, it wasn't the powers. It wasn't even about always making the right call. We all know Peter's whole story starts with him making the wrong choice. He let someone go he could have stopped, and it costs him the most important person in his life. So being a hero doesn't mean being perfect. But grace is what you do with the moments after you weren't. Peter could have shut down after Uncle Ben. He could have decided the world owed him something for what it took. And instead, he made a decision he's been living out every day since, that if he had the power to help someone, he would, and nobody has to earn it. Now, love is something you can point in any direction, and grace is love freely given to someone who didn't earn it and can't repay it. A gift nobody asked for. That is the distinction. He swings over a city full of strangers every single day. People who don't know his name can't pay him back. But you know what? He does it because he genuinely cannot stop being a hero. No Way Home has a moment at the end that I think is genuinely one of the quietest and most devastating things Marvel has ever put on screen. Because Peter asks Strange to make everyone forget who he is. And because of that, he has to move forward in life and watch the people he loves most look right through him. Nobody asked him to do that, but the alternative was putting them in danger, because with great power also comes great responsibility. That's grace. Love that costs you the center of your own story. Outward. Always outward. Remember that. I got into making comics because heroes mattered to me, not as entertainment, but as something I actually needed in my life. And I still believe that. These stories keep finding us because they're pointing at something true about what it means to be human. 5 pillars: awareness, conviction, courage, strength, and grace. And here's what I want to leave you with. Which of these are you actually hitting right now? Because most of us are landing several. We show up, we stand firm, we absorb the hit, and we keep moving. But where is your grace pointed? Inward or outward? Toward yourself or toward the people standing in front of you? Grace is powerful because it influences the other 4 pillars so strongly. So next week, we're going to flip this. We now know what makes a hero. So next, we logically need to understand what makes someone choose the other path. Because I don't think any of the best villains woke up one day and decided to be the bad guy. And figuring out how that happens might be the most important thing this series does for us as we go forward. I'll see you there.